Have you ever wondered how our modern daily routines could be similar to ones done long ago by ancient civilizations? Let's go back into the land of majestic pharaohs and mystic wonders, and learn about its past and the opulent lifestyles of those who lived it. From the pharaohs to the commoners, we will show you how they went about their daily lives. Did you know that living in ancient Egypt was very different from the popular perception? Yes, you heard it right. There are similarities between life in ancient Egypt and life in Egypt now. And regardless of their social standing, ancient Egyptians were passionate about life. But unbelievably, the class system, or as the Egyptians called it, the class pyramid, of not only this civilization, but almost all ancient civilizations. Not only that, in ancient Egypt, there was clearly defined upper and lower class. The pharaoh, the Egyptian king, and his family were at the top of the class system. Since the pharaohs had a serious duty and a great responsibility to rule Ma'at, the ancient goddess of truth, harmony, justice, and balance. It was believed that the king should be entitled to some luxuries that come along with his position. Just like the popular celebrities, the lifestyle of pharaohs and their families was quite luxurious, with an abundance of food, wine, and wealth. They lived in palaces, and their houses were richly decorated. Since meat was expensive, only the royalties had the privilege to relish a wide variety of meats, including antelope, gazelles, and cattle. For the most part, many royal women had slaves and servants, who cared for the kids and didn't have to clean or maintain the house. Instead, they helped their husbands advance specific policies and host foreign dignitaries. What do you think? How did the ancient Egyptians perceive the role of the pharaoh and the responsibilities to the goddess Ma'at? Next came the noblemen, who owned the fields and typically had larger buildings that were separated into three areas: the hall, the private quarters, and the reception space. The upper-class women had equal rights to men in many aspects. They could own a property, run a business, or join any profession of their choice. They had quite the liberty that the modern Egyptian women still enjoy. The priests were the most eminent part of this class. Priests needed to be able to read, in order to fulfill their duties in their daily lives, especially when it came to carrying out funeral ceremonies. Priests may be either female or male. Priests were able to start families, and most of their children followed their footsteps and became priests themselves. Next in the Egyptian hierarchy, you find scribes, doctors, and skilled craftsmen. Scribes, the highly educated individuals who were greatly valued in ancient Egypt as they were considered specially chosen by the god Thoth. It was believed that Thoth and his consort, Seshat, wrote down the events of each day. It was like they were recording history for all of eternity. How interesting! Fortunately, there were female scribes who led equally comfortable lives as their male counterparts, but most scribes were men. They lived near the temples or mortuaries. Not only that, but doctors also had to be literate in order to read medical texts since they had started out as scribes. Ancient Egyptian doctors had to study religious texts on a wide range of medical subjects, such as surgery, dentistry, bone setting, and illness treatment, in order to perform their medical duties. This reflects how religious beliefs and everyday life were intertwined in ancient Egypt. Can you guess what the significance was of the skilled craftsmen in ancient Egypt? Well, the skilled craftsmen of ancient Egypt played a pivotal role in the cultural heritage and brought Egypt into its eternal glory by contributing to its economy. Craftsmen in Egypt had to be trained and skilled workers specialized in various fields, including carpentry, stonemasonry, sculpting, blacksmithing, and pottery. Their livelihood depended on the quality of their own skills and how much they were liked and admired by people. While some had a harsher life than others to scrape together a living, wealthier artists could afford quite a nice place to live in, and poorer craftsmen lived in less magnificent homes that were smaller in size too. Have you ever wondered how the status of craftsmen changed over time in ancient Egypt? To unravel this matter, keep on watching and make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to stay notified about mysteries that are waiting to be discovered and investigated among the grains of time. Keep watching to find out. Have you ever wondered what was the most eaten food in ancient Egypt? Let's break the curiosity. It was bread, made from emmer wheat or barley. Every meal included bread, which came in a variety of sizes and forms and was occasionally sweetened with dates or honey. Another essential staple was beer, brewed from barley and enjoyed by people of all ages and social classes. When it comes to their daily attire, ancient Egyptians wore linen made from cotton looms. Simple linen garments were worn by both men and women. In the New Kingdom period, people in the lower hierarchy, like female slaves, female servants, used to only wear a kilt, whereas the men wore sheer thin blouses and skirts, while women, whether royal or noble, wore fitted gowns that fall from the shoulder to the ankles. Next in hierarchy were people of the lower classes, which included peasants, slaves, or servants. Peasants were part of the lowest class in society. They lived in old mud brick houses. They equipped their rooms with a bed, a bench, cooking pots, baskets, and wheat grinding tools. Sadly, the landowners, who included the king, nobles, priests, and other court members, were the owner of these properties. The farmers used to donate most of their crop yield to the landowner, while keeping a portion for themselves. Almost the majority of the peasants were farmers, and survived on a diet of vegetables and wheat. There weren't as many grazing areas, thus meat was more expensive and rarer as a hidden oasis in the desert for the peasant. What was more astonishing is that the peasant would frequently say, "Let us work for the noble," as they began their days. Even though women didn't usually accompany their husband out in the fields, farmers' wives had a lot of work to do, including maintaining the cleanliness of the home, caring for any animals that weren't used for plowing, attending to the needs of the elderly people in the family, and raising the kids. The farmer's garden was tended by women and kids as well, and it was a valuable resource for any family member. The Egyptian placed high importance on cleanliness, which extended to one's personal hygiene and living space. Did you know that the labor force used to construct Egypt's pyramids and other monuments was primarily composed of these peasants? Consequently, the slaves and servants that held the lowest repute in ancient Egypt were treated with a similar treatment. Surprisingly, compared to other members of the same class, slaves employed by royalties were incredibly fortunate to have access to benefits like food, shelter, and security. The other enslaved occasionally worked in trades in addition to being forced to labor. Instead of money, they were paid in food. But don't you worry, the ancient Egyptians' lives were not entirely dedicated to hard work. They had lots of free time to engage in sports, board games, festivities, and other leisure activities. In this perspective, today's Egypt is a living piece of history, still carrying the spirit of ancient times. So, what are your thoughts on this truly insightful living style of the ancient Egyptian civilization? Let us know in the comments. Don't miss a beat as we unveil more historical facts that await you in our upcoming episodes.